The 90s were arguably the best time for a kid to experience Halloween. In honor of the days when pillowcases were packed with sour candy and the streets were brimming with trick-or-treating kids, we're highlighting 13 things we loved about Halloween in the 90s. Number 13, Double Double, Toil and Trouble. Double Double, Toil and Trouble was a 1993 made-for-TV movie starring Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. The movie is about two twins who discover that their great aunt, played by Cloris Leachman, has been trapped and cursed by her evil twin sister. The movie was nominated for an Emmy for its music, and Mary-Kate and Ashley won a Young Artist Award for their work in the film. Depending on your age, you probably regarded this movie as slightly scary or sort of stupid, but we're willing to bet that most kids that grew up in the 90s can recall it playing in the background of an October sleepover. Number 12, Nick or Treat. Nick or Treat was a Halloween special that aired on Nickelodeon every year from 1985 to 2002. In this primitive version of Trivia HQ, kids could call in and play a trick-or-treat game on the TV. They'd have 40 seconds to visit 6 houses by pressing numbers on their phone to open the doors. Some houses even featured monsters from Real Monsters. Not every house packed a prize, but the ones that did offered things like video games, toys, CDs, or the Nickelodeon Pack, which was the biggest prize on the show and offered an assortment of gifts from different shows. Number 11, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a collection of 3 books written by Alvin Schwartz and illustrated by Stephen Gammell. The stories themselves were primarily based upon folklore and urban legends, but most would agree that it is Gammell's illustrations that made the trilogy so special. Quite frankly, some of them are downright disturbing, and a handful of images from the 82-story collection are probably still burned into the consciousness of countless 90s kids. Some of the most haunting include The Red Spot, Harold, Sam's New Pet, and The Haunted House. Predictably, the series was frequently opposed by parents groups and other critics, with the series being listed by the American Library Association as the most challenged series of books from the 90s. The collection has been called sick, repulsive, really disgusting, and not appropriate for children. This has led, also predictably, to increasing the appeal for riveted kids during their elementary school library time. In 2011, an edition of the series was published with the new illustrations that paled in comparison, but subsequent versions have thankfully returned to the originals. A 2019 film produced by Guillermo del Toro was released to positive reviews and profitable box office numbers. Number 10, And Then There Was Sean. Airing on February 27, 1998, this episode in Boy Meets World's 5th season was a departure from the show's typical tone. It was essentially a short surrealist slasher film with homages to many horror movies, including 1996's Scream. This included guest star Jennifer Love Hewitt from the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, who appeared in the episode as Jennifer Love Pfefferman. The episode's dark storyline both frightened and intrigued young viewers who were surprised to witness the on-screen deaths of their favorite sitcom characters. Despite this, the episode is now regarded as one of the series' best, and some call it the best Halloween episode of any TV show. Number 9, McDonald's Halloween Buckets. McDonald's Halloween Buckets were originally released in the 80s, but they received a makeover for the 90s. Available with the purchase of a Happy Meal, they became the vessel of choice for many trick-or-treating kids. The decade saw several versions, and there were a few years that skipped the buckets altogether. The most famous lineup included the McWitch, McBoo, and a glow-in-the-dark McGhost. One year even included cookie cutters in the lids for making treats at home. In the latter part of the decade, the buckets featured full Halloween scenes instead of specific characters. While these symbols of the season continued in some form into the 2010s, McDonald's hasn't offered them since 2016. Number 8, Scream. Scream is an American slasher film which premiered in 1996. The movie was inspired by the real-life Gainesville Ripper and follows a teenage girl who becomes the target of a mysterious killer that wears the now popular Ghostface mask. The film features many satires of classic horror movies like Halloween and Friday the 13th. What made the film distinct was its self-referential humor. The characters were fully aware of existing horror movie cliches and discussed them openly. Scream was very well received and subsequently became the highest-grossing slasher film for more than 2 decades. It received many nominations and awards, especially for its music, and was credited for revitalizing horror. Its cult status inspired 3 more movies, although only the second one was successful. It also led to a 3-season TV series on MTV, and a 5th movie is currently in development with a target release date of January 2022. Number 7, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark was a Canadian TV show that played on Nick from 1991 to 1996 and has probably inspired millions of nightmares since its debut. Its pilot, The Tale of the Twisted Claw, premiered on October 25, 1991 as part of Nick's Halloween programming. The show revolved around a group of teenagers known as the Midnight Society. Every episode featured a member of the society telling a different story around the campfire at night. Storylines included urban legends, the paranormal, fairy tales, and more. Each episode began with a member who was telling the story saying, "Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call this story," and then whatever the story was named. The phrase "submitted for the approval" was thrown in as a tribute to Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone. The storyteller would then throw midnight dust on the fire, which would produce flames and white smoke. What was the magic dust? Non-dairy coffee creamer. VHS copies of Are You Afraid of the Dark were released in 1994 and 1995, and a PC game was released in 1994. There were also board games and books inspired by the TV show. There have been several revivals since the original series, including a miniseries which premiered in October of 2019 and was just renewed for a second season. There is also a proposed Paramount movie which was unfortunately cancelled. Number 6. Count Chocula and Frankenberry cereals. General Mills first released their monster cereal line in 1971, each featuring a different classic movie monster. In the 90s, there were 4. Count Chocula was chocolate flavored, and Frankenberry was strawberry flavored. Boo Berry was, yeah, you guessed it, blueberry flavored, and Fruity Yummy Mummy featured a general fruit flavor before it was discontinued in 1992. While the monster cereals were initially offered year-round, since 2010 they have only been manufactured and distributed around Halloween time. Number 5. Casper. Universal's Casper premiered in 1995, and it featured special effect technology that was cutting edge at the time. For example, it was the first movie that used a fully CGI character in its lead role. In fact, Casper used more CG shots than the entirety of the movie Jurassic Park. The film, which took a darker tone than the Casper the Friendly Ghost cartoon that inspired it, received mixed reviews. Some praised it for its faithfulness to the source material, while others criticized its humor and dark tone. Overall, it made $287 million on a $55 million budget, and it inspired many follow-up films and even an animated series, The Spooktacular New Adventures of Casper. Oddly, a theatrical sequel never came to fruition due to a lackluster response to the rushed direct-to-video follow-ups. Number 4. Halloween Town. Halloween Town is a 1998 Disney Channel original movie that starred Kimberly J. Brown and Debbie Reynolds. It is the first installment in what would become a 4-film series. The movie is about a 13-year-old girl named Marnie who discovers that her estranged grandmother is a witch who lives in a fantastical world called Halloween Town with all sorts of paranormal, monster, and fairy tale creatures. Marnie follows her mother to Halloween Town to begin her own witch training, and together with her family they end up saving the town from the evil Mayor Calabar. One magazine rated the film as number 9 on its 40 best Disney Channel original movies list. The original movie was filmed in Oregon and has since developed a cult-like following, leading to a month-long festival celebrating the film each year in St. Helens, the main shooting location. The celebration typically features costume contests, haunted houses, and even special appearances and panels with actors from the film. Number 3. McNugget Buddies. The McNugget Buddies just might be the most popular McDonald's Happy Meal toy of all time. While an original set was introduced in 1988, it was the Halloween sets of 1992 and 1996 that are most remembered. Each set included a potato-shaped McNugget Buddy and a costume to dress them up in. The popularity of the toys was reinforced with a series of TV commercials where the buddies were portrayed by lovable little chicken nugget puppets. Yes, I just said chicken nugget puppets. Number 2. The Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas came out in 1993 and has since become a Halloween classic. This stop-motion animated film follows Jack Skellington, who leaves his home of Halloween Town and becomes obsessed with Christmas after he wanders into Christmas Town. Burton originally considered releasing the story as a children's book or a short film before it became a full-length feature. An integral part of the film is the music, composed by Danny Elfman, who also provides the singing voice for Jack. During its filming peak, 20 individual stages were used simultaneously, and in total, there were 109,440 frames taken for the film. 227 different puppets were used in all, and Jack alone employed around 400 different heads to make him extremely expressive. Disney originally released the film under Touchstone Pictures because the studio thought that it would be too dark and scary for kids. Later, it was re-released under Walt Disney Pictures, and it became the first stop-motion movie to be fully converted to 3D. It has achieved cult status, and its characters can now be seen annually in the Disney parks, in the seasonal Haunted Mansion overlay, as well as Disney World's Halloween Spectacular, which is hosted by Jack. Number 1. Hocus Pocus. Of course Hocus Pocus was going to be number 1. The film premiered in 1993 and was directed by Kenny Ortega, who also directed High School Musical and Newsies and choreographed Dirty Dancing, Pretty in Pink, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The story is about 3 witches, played by Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, who are resurrected on Halloween night in Salem, Massachusetts by a teenage boy. The film's original working title was Halloween House, and it was initially pitched to Steven Spielberg, but he refused the project as he saw Disney as a competitor to his own production company, Amblin. The movie was originally going to be much scarier and darker, and Leonardo DiCaprio was originally offered the lead role of Max, but he declined to pursue What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Most of production took place on a soundstage in Burbank, California, but some scenes were actually filmed on location in Salem with the core cast. The film was not successful upon release, and Disney actually lost approximately $16.5 million on it. However, annual airings on Freeform and the Disney Channel have led it to become a cult classic and an essential part of many families' Halloween celebrations. Bette Midler referred to the movie as the most fun I'd had in my career up to that point. For Hocus Pocus fans, there's good news. A sequel is currently in development for the Disney Plus streaming service, and the 3 leads have all confirmed that they will be participating in the film. A release date and director have yet to be announced. Thank you for joining us as we relived the top 13 things we loved about Halloween in the 90s. If you think we missed anything, please let us know in the comments. And special thanks goes out to Miriam Merrill and Kian Dowdy for making this video possible.